Paul, you're a lying, egocentric, manipulative man-child who gets off on the idea that you can tell people to do something and they'll just jump to do it, without considering how it might impact them personally. You don't seem to care about other people because someone who cares about other people doesn't knowingly do what you did. The last video responses I made to you were more or less just to showcase evidence of what people who follow you did to try to intimidate me and shut me up. And they actually broke a few laws along the way. The Internet Personal Protection Privacy Act states that you can't threaten to have someone fired on things that happen on the internet, simply because you're violating their personal rights to go to their workplace to threaten them to get fired to shut them up. You seem to be heavily for censorship if it means it's in your favor. I simply want the truth to be heard regardless of who benefits. Paul, what you do, you don't care about the truth. You only care about what makes you come out on top, or what makes you look like the superior person in the conflict. Just like when my girlfriend having an emotional breakdown on film. You used it and edited it and put it out of context. That way you could pretend that for some reason I was somehow the source of her problem, when her dismay was actually caused by another conflict to which I had no connection. But you conveniently didn't tell your audience this, and you knowingly expected them to go after me with such vitriol and aggression simply because of the fact that you claimed you were exposing an abuser, when in reality you were just trying to make someone look like an abuser to cover up your bruised ego. People like you don't really care about other people. The fact that you claim to try to do the right thing is utter nonsense, because you lie to people full right, knowing that they're going to respond in a certain way if you send them after someone. The subs I have, I wouldn't send them after you simply because I have nothing to gain. I only want my opinion to be heard, as well as telling the truth about instances where the truth is relevant. Just like in my videos towards Onision, I never made up facts. I told people exactly how it was, because I had nothing to benefit by giving false information. I told people exactly what they needed to hear, in the exact way they needed to hear it. You, however, Paul, you tell people what they'd like to hear, or what you think they should hear. You're not really a fan of giving the information that is prudent, to pointing things out in an accurate light. You're more or less the kind of guy who would walk up to a history book, and if something in the history book was written in a way he didn't like it, you would rip out those pages and replace those pages with things that would benefit your agenda. And that's what your whole YouTube career has been, Paul. You're not really a ranter, you're just a selfish teenage man. Well, I guess a teenager trapped in a man's body, who knowingly exploits people's vulnerabilities and false information for a laugh, and yet you pretend you're superior when other people get aggravated with it. I'm not going to make this video too much longer because I'm just going to say what needs to be said for the sole purpose of telling you straight up that I think you're a terrible person. Like, you don't need to do a lot to be considered a terrible person, but normally I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But you, Paul, what you did, you pushed things way too far. You pushed the envelope knowing that if you exploited someone, I would get angry and I would respond. And you found that trying to manipulate someone else's life from behind the scenes, trying to get people to argue with each other, trying to sabotage people's lives in every aspect, you thought it was humorous. You thought it was funny that people would go try to damage another person's life or their career simply because they said some hurtful things to you. You claim other people are hypersensitive when you tell them to kill themselves, but yet when someone tells you that you're being a jackass for doing it, you throw a fit and you start crying to your fans and send them after people. You're the master of manipulation and censorship because you love to censor people by telling your followers and your subs only what you think they need to hear, instead of what needs to be heard. And you manipulate them into doing that by censoring the words that people say and replacing them with a context that you feel best benefits you. You don't really care about people or how they feel or the things that you do to hurt them or potentially damage their lives. You're more or less obsessed with the idea that you can get more attention from it. Just like when you invited me to the live stream. The only reason I didn't join your little podcast is because I knew that if I did, it would just be like an hour of you saying, Listen to the moderator. Listen to the moderator. You can't say these things. Listen to the moderator. You can't say these things. If you say something that isn't funny, the moderator will kick you out of the podcast. People I know that have followed me, that have actually watched one of your podcasts all the way through, basically told me it was basically just you yelling at your friends, making autistic jokes for an hour. And basically you'd have the moderator shut down anyone that had anything to say. He said, like, when the first minute or 30 seconds into the video, you basically said, like, this is the Marbles show. Instead of it being Cloud9, it's the Marbles show. So basically it's like, okay, so the podcast is made for you and your friends, but yet for some reason you try to dominate it and try to say that you're the most prominent one and that your friends who are helping you don't matter. That's what it sounds like to me. Like, the statement that person sent me a clip of you saying that statement in the exact context in which you recorded it gives me the projection that you don't really consider your friends as friends. You consider them more or less as like backup props. Like, you consider them like kind of like how a person in a vocal artist would consider backup singers. You consider them as only secondary equipment and not actual people involved in the podcast. And you knowingly do this. You knowingly exploit other people's problems for a laugh, and you find it amusing, which is disgusting. Now again, if it wasn't for the personal attacks, I wouldn't have cared. But the fact that you went so far to harass, stalk, bully, and taunt anyone who has some sort of problem is screwed up. I mean, you're 27 years old. It's time you took responsibility for your actions, Paul. Shouldn't tell people they're bad people for telling you that it's immature to act like a psychopath. When most people are told no, they just simply accept the fact that they cannot change it. What you did, however, Paul, you stalked me for months and months and months, simply begging me to come back on the podcast. Anyone who followed you who had a keyboard and a hand to type basically demanded via my social media and my Google account for me to get on a podcast with you. And there was a time where I considered getting on a podcast with you. There was a time where I actually considered doing it. But the reason I didn't do it is because after some consideration, it's like, wait a minute. If I jump on the podcast, all it's going to do is mean that there's going to be more problems for him to feed off of. There's going to be more people watching because he has an issue with someone. And all it's going to do is send more viewers to his channel. Which, honestly, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't even going to begin to try to feed more of the bullshit that you thrive on to you. Because I simply refused to give you more of what you wanted, and that's what you didn't like. It was simply because you didn't get your way. Just like how Onision debated a sock when Daniel, otherwise known as Mr. Epstein, had refused to join him in a Google Hangout debate. He simply called Daniel a coward and then argued with a sock for an hour, and even the sock had more points than he did, and he was the one controlling the sock. And honestly, Paul, that's what it seems like to me. It sounds like you're almost like the proverbial Onision debating the sock. Because the sock is just sitting there saying things that you don't like. So you lose your mind, and you throw a fit, and then you try to do whatever you can to intimidate said sock. Which is kind of sad, because think about it. You're so sad and pathetic that you need to have people damage another person's life, or try to damage another person's life, to shut them up. I mean, you're such a stupid, limp-dick little coward that you need to run from every confrontation, and then suddenly you act like you're superior when you upset someone. Dude, you're a coward. You're the unconventional coward. You're the exploitionist, manipulative, sociopathic coward that literally everyone likes to typecast you as. And one day, Paul, I hope you can come to that realization, because it seems like the only person that hasn't come to it is you.